This scalpel was meant to heal. That is what I trained for. 7 years at the university, learning anatomy, pathology, the sacred oath to preserve life. But in this city, in this winter of 1942, it is no longer just an instrument of medicine. It is a key, a passport, a weapon of negotiation. I hold it now under the single bare bulb in my clinic, watching how the light catches the edge. My hands are trembling. They have been trembling for 18 months, since the day the columns of trucks rolled into our city and everything I knew turned to ash. Outside my window, I hear boots on cobblestones, the patrol. They pass every morning at exactly 4:47 a.m. I have 15 minutes before the clinic opens, 15 minutes to make a decision that will either save a life or end my own. In the storage room behind me, hidden beneath the loose floorboard under the examining table, there are 6 vials of morphine. Real morphine, not the watered-down substitute they give us in our official rations. I stole them 3 weeks ago from the officers' hospital where I'm required to work every Tuesday and Thursday. The theft could mean execution, but without them, the child in the basement of the church will die screaming. 10 seconds to decide. Do I use this scalpel today to remove shrapnel from a soldier who will return to the front and kill more of my people? Or do I risk everything, close the clinic, and run through the frozen streets to save one child I will never see again? My breath fogs in the cold air. The heating oil ran out in November. I make my choice. I always make the same choice. I survive. I compromise. I become a little less human every single day. The water in the basin has a skin of ice on top. I crack it with my knuckles, wincing at the cold, and splash my face. The mirror above the sink is cracked, a souvenir from the first week of occupation when a rifle butt came through my door looking for the family that used to live upstairs. The fracture runs right through my reflection, splitting my face in two. Appropriate, I think. That is what I am now, split. There is Dr. Anton Eisenbach, who wears the white coat and the armband they require all medical professionals to wear. The armband is white with a red cross, but the red looks brown in certain light, like dried blood. Dr. Eisenbach speaks when spoken to. He nods. He says, "Yes, sir," and "Right away, sir," and keeps his eyes on the floor when the officers make their jokes about inferior races and genetic purity. And then there is Anton. Just Anton. The man who remembers his daughter's laugh, who remembers his wife's hand in his during their last walk through the park before they came for her. The man who hides medicine and falsifies death certificates and lies, 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 until the lies become a second language more fluent than truth. I dress in layers. The wool undershirt, thin as paper now from years of washing. The shirt, once white, now gray. The trousers with the patched knee. The sweater my mother knitted before the war, when wool was just wool and not a luxury that could get you killed for possessing. The white coat last. I button it slowly, each button a small surrender. In the pocket, I carry my medical license. The old one, from before, is hidden in the lining of my shoe. The new one, issued by the occupying government, has my photograph but a different number, a number that marks me as acceptable for limited practice under supervision. I'm 43 years old. I trained at Vienna. I have published 17 papers on infectious disease, but now I am acceptable for limited practice. I check my papers 3 times, the identification card, the work permit, the travel authorization that allows me to move between the clinic and the officer's hospital. One missing stamp, one smudged signature, and I disappear into the night like so many others. The breakfast is the same as every morning, a slice of bread, dark and heavy, made from flour mixed with sawdust to stretch the rations. I don't taste it anymore. I chew mechanically, counting to 30 before I swallow, the way my mother taught me when I was young. "Digestion begins in the mouth, Anton," she would say. I wonder if she is still alive. I haven't heard from her in 8 months. The ersatz coffee is made from roasted barley and chicory. It tastes like burnt soil. I drink it anyway, feeling the weak warmth spread through my chest. Calories are survival. Taste is a luxury from another lifetime. Through the thin walls, I hear Frau Kowalski coughing in the apartment next door. The same wet, rattling cough she has had for 6 weeks. Tuberculosis, probably, though I cannot examine her without filing a report. And filing a report means she gets taken to the sanitarium on the east side of the city, the sanitarium where no one ever returns. So I listen to her cough. I leave medicines on her doorstep wrapped in newspaper. And I do nothing that would make it official. The streets are dark and empty. Curfew doesn't lift until 6, but medical personnel are allowed earlier transit. I carry my papers in my right hand, ready to present them at any moment. My left hand stays in my pocket, wrapped around the small knife I carry now. Not for fighting. I would lose any fight, but for myself, if it comes to that. A final choice. The last bit of control. The city looks like a corpse in the pre-dawn darkness, buildings with empty windows like gouged-out eyes, walls pockmarked with bullet holes. The fountain in the central square, dry now, filled with frozen trash and propaganda posters peeling in the wind. I used to bring my daughter here to throw coins and make wishes. I walk quickly, my breath making clouds in the freezing air. The temperature must be 15 below. My shoes, the soles patched with cardboard, barely keep the cold at bay. I can feel it creeping up through my feet, into my bones. 2 blocks from the clinic, I reach the checkpoint. There are 2 guards today. Young men, maybe 20 years old, with rifles slung over their shoulders and boredom in their eyes. The dangerous kind of boredom, the kind that looks for entertainment in cruelty. I stop 3 meters away, as required, and hold out my papers. Papers, the first guard says, in accented but competent Polish. He doesn't look at me, just at the documents. I wait. Silence is survival. Speak only when questioned directly. He flips through the cards slowly, too slowly. My heart begins to hammer. Is there something wrong? Did I miss a stamp? Is this the morning everything ends? You're out early, doctor, the second guard says. This one is looking at me, studying me. Yes, sir, I reply. My voice is steady. I've practiced this voice. I have a clinic to prepare. Patients begin arriving at 6. What kind of patients? This is a test. There is always a test. General medicine, sir. Minor injuries. Illness. I also work at the officers' hospital on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as indicated on my work permit. The first guard hands back my papers. Go on. I take them, resisting the urge to grab them too quickly, and nod. Thank you, sir. I walk away at the same measured pace, not too fast. Fear shows in hurry. I count my steps, 20, 30, 40, before I allow myself to breathe fully again. This is what we have become. Grateful for the mercy of not being harassed, grateful for the privilege of being ignored. The clinic is a narrow building wedged between an abandoned tailor shop and a tobacco store that now sells only propaganda newspapers. The sign above the door still reads, Dr. A. Eisenbach, General Practice, though someone has painted a yellow star next to my name. I have scrubbed it off 4 times. It reappears within a week. I unlock 3 separate locks on the door, one of them new, installed after the last break-in, and step inside. The smell hits me immediately. Disinfectant and damp and something else, something organic and sad. The smell of too many sick people in too small a space with not enough medicine. The waiting room is 8 chairs, 7 of them broken. The walls were painted green once, but the paint is flaking now, revealing the gray plaster beneath. There is a portrait on the wall, not mine to hang, but required by law. I don't look at it. I haven't looked at it in months. I light the oil lamp in the examination room. The electricity is rationed, and I am allowed power only between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. The lamp casts long shadows across the room, making the medical instruments on the counter look like torture devices. Perhaps they are. Perhaps that is what medicine has become. I begin my morning routine. I inventory the supplies, noting what I have used, what I have lost, what I have stolen. The official logbook is for the inspectors who come once a month. The real logbook is memorized, kept nowhere but in my head. Official inventory: 14 bandages, 2 bottles of iodine, 1 vial of penicillin. Real inventory: 23 bandages, hidden in the ceiling, 4 bottles of iodine, 1 in my apartment, 6 vials of morphine under the floorboard, 3 vials of penicillin behind the false back of the medicine cabinet. The discrepancy could kill me, but the truth would kill my patients. I boil water on the small kerosene stove in the corner. The steam rises, and for a moment, just a moment, I close my eyes and pretend I'm somewhere else. Somewhere warm. Somewhere my daughter is still alive. But the knock on the door pulls me back. It is 5:58 a.m., 2 minutes early. She is 17, maybe 18. Thin as a rail, with hollows under her eyes that make her look 50. She wears a coat 3 sizes too big, and I can see the yellow star sewn onto the sleeve. slightly crooked as if done in haste. "Doctor," she whispers, "please, my brother." I glance past her. The waiting room is still empty. The patrol won't pass again for another hour. I have time. Maybe. "Inside." Quickly. She slips through the door, and I close it behind her, turning the lock. She is shaking. From cold or fear, I cannot tell. "What happened?" I ask. "He was caught after curfew. They hit him. His head. There's so much blood." My stomach tightens. Head wounds. Dangerous. Complicated. The kind of thing that requires hospitalization, real equipment, things I don't have. "Where is he?" "In the alley. Behind the tobacco shop. He can't walk. I couldn't carry him." I should say no. I should tell her to take him to the official hospital, knowing full well they will let him die in the waiting room, or worse. I should protect myself. I should survive. Instead, I grab my bag. "Show me." We move through the back door into the narrow alley that runs behind the buildings. The dawn is just beginning to break, painting the sky a sickly gray. The boy is crumpled against the wall, one hand pressed to his head. Blood seeps through his fingers, dark and thick. I kneel beside him. "Can you hear me?" He nods weakly. I pull his hand away gently. The wound is a gash above his left temple, about 3 inches long, deep enough to need stitches. The blood flow is steady but not arterial. He might have a concussion. He might have a skull fracture. Without an x-ray, I'm guessing. "We need to move him inside," I tell the girl. "Can you support his other side?" Together, we half carry, half drag him into the clinic through the back entrance. Every second feels like an hour. Every sound, a distant engine, a dog barking, makes my heart seize with terror. We get him onto the examination table. I close the curtain. I light another lamp. And then I do what I was trained to do. Not the cutting, not the procedure. That part exists in a space outside of words, outside of thought. It is muscle memory and focus and the steady rhythm of breath. What I remember is his eyes, the way he looks at me with something between fear and hope, the way his sister holds his hand, whispering, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." Like a prayer. I clean the wound. I prepare the needle and thread. My hands stop trembling. They always stop trembling when I work. It is the only time I feel like myself. The room fades away, leaving only the wound and the needle and the knowledge that this boy's life depends on the next 10 minutes. Not on politics, not on ideology, just on whether my hands remember what to do. When I finish, the wound is closed. The bleeding has stopped. I wrap his head in clean bandages, some from the official stock, some from the hidden supply. I give him half a vial of penicillin. It might be enough, it might not. "Keep the wound dry," I tell the sister. "Change the bandage every day. If he develops a fever, if he becomes confused, if he vomits more than once." I stop. What can I tell her? Come back here? Risk another journey through the streets? Risk my life again? "Do your best," I finish lamely. She takes my hand. Hers is cold and rough. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you." I pull away. "Go, before the patrols increase. Use the back door." They leave, the boy leaning heavily on his sister, and I lock the door behind them. I stand there for a moment, breathing hard, feeling the adrenaline drain from my body like poison. I have saved a life. I have risked my own, and in 6 hours I will do it again. This is my day, every day. The official hours begin, and with them, the official patients. They line up in the waiting room, factory workers with crushed fingers, old women with infected sores, children with fever and fear in their eyes. I see them one by one, doing what I can with what I have. A man with bronchitis. I give him cough syrup and tell him to rest, knowing he cannot rest because missing work means losing his ration card. A woman with malnutrition disguised as digestive trouble. I give her vitamin supplements from my hidden supply and tell her to eat more vegetables, knowing there are no vegetables to buy. A child with lice and scabies. I give the mother a solution to wash the child's hair and clothes, knowing she has no soap, no hot water, no way to comply. I am not practicing medicine. I am practicing futility. At 10:15, the door opens, and 2 officers walk in. The waiting room goes silent, the kind of silence that feels like suffocation. One of the officers is tall, with pale blue eyes and a scar across his chin. The other is shorter, rounder, with glasses that magnify his eyes to an unsettling size. They wear their uniforms like armor, every button polished, every crease sharp. "Dr. Eisenbach," the tall one says. His Polish is flawless. "We need to speak with you." My mouth goes dry. I glance at the patients in the waiting room. They are all looking down now, studying their hands, their shoes, anything but the officers. "Of course," I say. "Please, come into my office." They follow me into the examination room. The tall one closes the door. The short one stands by the window, blocking the only exit. "How can I help you?" I ask. My voice is calm, always calm. The tall officer pulls out a folded paper from his pocket. "We have received reports that medicine is going missing from the officer's hospital, morphine specifically. You work there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, correct?" My heart stops, then restarts, too fast, too loud. Can they hear it? "That is correct," I say. "Have you noticed anything unusual? Any discrepancies in the inventory?" This is the test. This is the moment where one wrong word, one flicker of guilt in my eyes, ends everything. I meet his gaze. I've practiced this. I've practiced this 1,000 times in my mind. "I have not," I say, "but I am not involved in inventory management. I'm assigned to the surgical ward. My access to the pharmacy is limited." The officer studies me. 5 seconds, 10. It feels like drowning. "Nevertheless," he says slowly, "we are conducting interviews with all personnel who have access to that wing. If you notice anything, you will report it immediately. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir, of course." "Good." He refolds the paper and puts it back in his pocket. "We would hate to discover that someone we trust has been misusing their position." The thread is clear, crystal clear. "I understand completely, sir," I say. They leave. The door clicks shut. I stand there, my legs shaking, my hands clenched into fists to stop their trembling. They suspect. They might not know, but they suspect. The morphine under the floorboard burns in my mind like a beacon. 6 vials. Evidence of theft. Evidence of treason. I should destroy it. Dump it down the sink. Eliminate the evidence, but the child in the church basement will die without it. I press my palms against the examination table, leaning forward, breathing slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Control. I must maintain control. When I return to the waiting room, the patients are still sitting in silence. They don't ask what the officers wanted. They know better. I call the next patient. I take my lunch in the back room, a piece of hard cheese, a small apple, wizened and brown-spotted. I eat slowly, methodically, tasting nothing. Through the thin wall, I hear Frau Kowalski coughing again. The sound is worse today, wetter, deeper. They will write books about this war. They will write about the battles, the generals, the strategic turning points. They will draw maps with arrows and calculate casualty figures, and debate the decisions made in distant capitals. But they will not write about this, about the doctor who eats a rotten apple and listens to his neighbor die slowly through the wall, about the choice between saving a child and saving yourself, about the way your soul erodes, one small compromise at a time, until you don't recognize the person looking back at you in the cracked mirror. They will not write about the quiet acts of resistance, the falsified death certificate that lets a family escape, the stolen morphine, the boy with the head wound hidden in the back alley, or the quiet acts of collaboration, the officer's wound I cleaned, the loyalty oath I signed, the portrait I allowed to hang on my wall. History remembers the heroes and the monsters. It forgets the people in between, the people who simply tried to survive. If you want to remember the real war, not the politics, not the propaganda, but the people who lived it, who compromised and lied and stole and saved and suffered, then you are in the right place. Subscribe, bear witness, remember us. Because when this is over, whether we win or lose, they will try to make it simple. They will try to divide us into good and evil, resistance and collaboration. But it was never simple. It was never clean. It was this. It was always this. a rotten apple, a dying neighbor, and the choice to keep going. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I work at the officers' hospital on the north side of the city. It is a commandeered hotel, marble floors and chandeliers, converted into a medical facility for the occupying forces. I take the tram, standing in the back section marked for people like me. The yellow star on my coat makes sure I know where I belong. The hospital smells different from my clinic, clean, sterile. There is heat here, electric lights, real medicine in glass cabinets with real locks. I report to the surgical ward on the 3rd floor. The head surgeon, Dr. Muller, is a man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. He is not cruel, but he is not kind. He is efficient. He expects the same from me. "Eisenbach," he says when I arrive. "Room 312, shrapnel removal. Simple procedure. You will assist." "Yes, doctor." The patient is a lieutenant, young, maybe 25. The shrapnel is lodged in his shoulder, fragments from a grenade that caught him during a skirmish on the Eastern Front. He is conscious, sedated but aware. He looks at me as I prepare the instruments. "You're one of them," he says. Not a question, an observation. I say nothing. I arrange the scalpel, the forceps, the sutures. "It's funny," he continues, his words slightly slurred from the sedation. "You're going to fix me up so I can go back and kill more of your people. Doesn't that bother you?" Dr. Muller glances at me, a warning in his eyes. "Don't engage. Don't react." "I'm a doctor, Lieutenant," I say quietly. "I treat injuries. That is my job." He laughs, a short, bitter sound. "You're better than me then. I kill people. That's my job. And I'm good at it." Dr. Muller picks up the scalpel. "Enough talking. Let's begin." What happens next exists outside of language. I assist. I hold the retractor. I hand Dr. Muller the instruments he needs. I watch as he extracts the fragments, small pieces of metal that would have festered and killed the lieutenant if left untreated. The lieutenant will heal. He will return to the front. He will kill more people. Maybe he will kill someone I know. Maybe he will kill someone like the boy I saved this morning. And I am the one who made that possible. When the procedure is finished, Dr. Muller nods his approval. "Good work, Eisenbach. Clean up here, then check on the post-operative patients in Ward B." "Yes, doctor." I clean the instruments slowly, methodically. I sterilize them in the autoclave. I return them to their proper places. And then, when no one is looking, I slip 3 vials of morphine from the pharmacy cabinet into the lining of my coat. My hands are steady. I have done this before. The tram ride back is longer than the morning journey. The sun is setting early. It is December, after all, and the streets are beginning to empty as curfew approaches. I think about the lieutenant, about his words. "You're going to fix me up so I can go back and kill more of your people." He is right. That is exactly what I did. I collaborated. I extended the life of someone who will use that life to cause more death. But if I hadn't, if I had refused, I would lose my position at the hospital. I would lose access to the morphine. I would lose the ability to help anyone at all, so I make the calculation, 1 life of an enemy versus the many lives I can save with the medicine I steal. It is a cold calculation, a utilitarian equation, the kind of math that turns human beings into numbers. I hate myself for it, but I do it anyway. The tram stops. I disembark and walk the last 3 blocks to my apartment. The checkpoint guards are different from this morning, an older man with a limp and a young woman with sharp eyes. They check my papers without comment and wave me through. When I reach my building, there is a note tucked into the doorframe, small, folded. The paper is cheap, torn from a ledger. I glance around. The street is empty. I take the note and slip inside quickly. In the dim light of my apartment, I unfold it. The handwriting is barely legible, scrawled in pencil. "Father Tomasz, Church of St. Stanisław, tonight, 9 p.m., bring what you can." I burn the note in the sink, watching the paper curl and blacken. The hut. Smoke rises and I open the window despite the cold. Father Tomasz, the priest who hides children in the church basement, the priest who asked me 3 weeks ago if I could help with a boy who was dying from an infected wound. I promised him morphine. I promised him antibiotics. Tonight is the night I keep that promise, or the night I get caught trying. I eat dinner, a thin soup made from potato peel and onion, a slice of bread, and I prepare for what comes next. The morphine is still under the floorboard in the clinic. I cannot go back there now. The streets are too dangerous after dark, even with my medical exemption. But I have 3 vials in the lining of my coat, the ones I stole this afternoon. They will have to be enough. I also pack a small satchel, bandages, iodine, a scalpel, sutures, the basics. If the child's condition has worsened, I will need to work quickly. I change into darker clothes. I remove the white coat and the armband. I become just another shadow in the night. At 8:45 p.m., I leave my apartment through the back stairwell. The building is silent. Everyone is inside, doors locked, lights dimmed. Survival is staying invisible. The streets are nearly empty. I move quickly, keeping to the alleys, avoiding the main boulevards where the patrols are thickest. The cold is brutal now, the wind cutting through my coat like knives. I see them before they see me. 2 guards at the intersection of Krakowska and Długa streets. They are stamping their feet against the cold, rifles slung over their shoulders. One is smoking, the other is talking, his breath forming clouds in the frozen air. I cannot go through them. I cannot go around. The street is too open. I retreat into a doorway and wait. 5 minutes. 10. My feet are going numb. My fingers ache from the cold. Finally they move on, their boots crunching in the snow. I count to 60, then slip across the intersection, moving fast, my heart pounding so loud I am certain they will hear it. But they don't turn around. I disappear into the next alley, and I keep moving. The Church of St. Stanisław is a stone building at the edge of the old quarter. It is ancient, older than the war, older than the occupation, older than memory. The doors are heavy oak, scarred with age and weather. I knock 3 times, pause, twice more. The door opens a crack. A face peers out. Father Tomasz, his beard gray, his eyes sunken from lack of sleep. "Doctor," he whispers, "thank God, come in, quickly." Inside, the church is dark, except for a few candles flickering in the alcoves. The air smells of incense and damp stone. I follow Father Tomasz down a narrow staircase to the basement. The basement is divided into small rooms once used for storage. Now they are shelters, hiding places. In one room, on a makeshift bed of straw and blankets, a child is lying motionless. He is perhaps 9 years old. Thin, pale, his breathing shallow and rapid. There is a bandage on his leg, brown with dried blood. "He was shot," Father Tomasz says quietly. "5 days ago. The wound is infected. I have been cleaning it, but..." He trails off. He doesn't need to say it. The child is dying. I kneel beside the bed and pull back the bandage. The wound is on his thigh, a bullet entry point. The skin around it is red and swollen, radiating heat. I can smell the infection, sweet and rotten. "Has he been eating?" I ask. "Very little. He has a fever." I touch the child's forehead. It is burning hot. "This is bad. This is very bad. The infection has spread. Without proper antibiotics, without surgical debridement, he will die. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. But I have 3 vials of morphine. I have bandages. I have iodine. It is not enough. It is never enough." "I will do what I can," I tell Father Tomasz. He nods. "I will pray." I work by candlelight. I clean the wound as best as I can, removing the dead tissue, irrigating with iodine. The child moans but does not wake. The fever has him in its grip. I inject the first vial of morphine, for the pain, for the mercy of unconsciousness. I apply fresh bandages. I leave the second vial with Father Tomasz. "If the pain becomes too much," I say. I don't finish the sentence. He understands. The third vial I keep. For next time. Because there is always a next time. "Will he live?" Father Tomasz asks. I look at the child. His chest rises and falls, each breath a struggle. I want to lie. I want to give this priest hope. "I don't know," I say. "The infection is advanced. He needs more than I can give him." Father Tomasz places a hand on my shoulder. "You have done what you can, doctor. That is all any of us can do." I pack my satchel. I prepare to leave. "Doctor," Father Tomasz says as I reach the stairs, "there are others, more children. Can you come back?" I look at him. This old man, hiding children in a church basement, risking his life every single day. "I will try," I say. It is all I can promise. The journey back is a blur of fear and cold. I move through the streets like a ghost, keeping to the shadows, avoiding the patrols by sheer luck and memory of their routes. When I finally reach my apartment, I lock the door behind me and lean against it, my legs shaking, my breath coming in gasps. I made it. Again, one more night survived. I light a candle and sit at the small table by the window. Outside, the city is dark and silent. Somewhere, a child is dying despite my efforts. Somewhere, a lieutenant is healing because of my efforts. I pour water from the pitcher into the basin. The water is cold, near freezing. I scrub my hands, watching the water turn cloudy with soap and dirt. I scrub until my skin is raw, until my knuckles bleed, trying to wash away the feeling that never quite leaves. The stain of collaboration, the stain of inadequacy, the stain of survival at the expense of everything I once believed. When my hands are clean, or as clean as they will ever be, I dry them on a threadbare towel and blow out the candle. Tomorrow, I will wake at 4:30 a.m. I will prepare my papers. I will walk through the frozen streets to my clinic. I will see patients. I will steal medicine. I will hide what I can and compromise where I must. I will survive another day, and the day after that, and the day after that, until there are no more days left, until this war ends one way or another, and I am left to count the cost of my choices. I lie down on the narrow bed. The blanket is thin. The cold seeps through the walls. In the darkness, I can hear Frau Kowalski coughing next door. The sound is weaker tonight, quieter. She will be dead by morning. I know this the way I know the sky will lighten in 6 hours. The way I know the patrol will pass my building at 4:47 a.m. The way I know I will wake up and do this all over again. I close my eyes. I do not pray. I stopped praying 18 months ago when the trucks rolled into our city and God stayed silent. But I remember. I remember my daughter's laugh, my wife's hand in mine. The time before, when a scalpel was just a tool for healing and nothing more. I remember. And tomorrow, I will forget again. I will put on the white coat and the armband. I will become Dr. Eisenbach, acceptable for limited practice under supervision. I will become the mask, and the man beneath will disappear a little more. The sun will rise in 6 hours, and I will learn how to compromise all over again. This is my life. This is my war. This is what survival costs.